when you hear teachings or principles or points that you might have heard before, it hits different in different seasons, as they would say, right? And so I want to encourage you to listen through it through the lens of this season that you are in your leadership journey. And let's get right into this today. Let's talk about the cycle of succession. The cycle of succession. Succession is essentially the act of handing off the baton to the next. You could see it that way. It is passing on responsibility, position, weight, duties, roles, whatever it translates as in your context. Succession is essentially um, the passing off of a position. So your successor would be the person that is receiving what you pass off. Okay, the one coming up after you, the one that's standing on your shoulders, the one that you have been training up to take your place. Okay, I think I opened up the Lounge Weekly reading this quote right here, but leadership isn't about developing or leadership is about developing leaders. It is not about gaining followers. So, in the follow culture in this digital age, we really get caught up with gaining more followers. Now I understand if you have an online platform, it's your business, it's your especially if it's your living, sometimes the amount of followers can get you certain gigs, jobs, exposure. I understand the value of having a good following online. Like right now, I'm speaking with a publisher, and one of the things that he looked at this publishing agency was how many followers I had. So I understand the importance of it, right? But our aim should not just be to get the followers. Our aim, mission, goal, desire, delight in leadership is developing other leaders, right? It's raising up those who are truly coming after you. It's setting the future up that you dream of. And you do that, by the way, of developing other leaders, cultivating leaders, pouring everything that you know into somebody. Essentially, that's legacy, right? Legacy is not about how many followers you have. Legacy is going to be about how many people you develop, the lessons, values, and love that you left in other people, in leaders when you pass. And so, leadership is about developing leaders, pouring everything you have into them. Because, matter of fact, that will be the biggest quote unquote following that you ever have. Because when you speak to leaders, you're not just speaking to them, you're speaking through them. And so you're speaking to all of their future influence that they're going to have one day, and not just the one by ones. So here is the 5 steps. Here are the 5 steps. It's early of succession. Okay. This right here, it might be a John Maxwell thing. I'm not exactly sure. I know I've heard him talk about it before. If he talks about it, he probably authored it. But the 5 steps of succession are these. Number one, I do, you watch. So I do the task, I set the tone, I am the example, and you are watching. Okay, you're taking note of how I do what I do. Okay. Right now, I just acquired our youth ministry at our church. I work at a church every day, and uh, one of the things that we're doing is, we know that the plan is not for me to stay in the youth ministry. That wasn't why I came. That's not why I'm here necessarily. Now I get it. I'm here to serve where I need to serve. But that was really a last thought, me ever acquiring the youth ministry. Our youth pastor transition, and I was the guy to step up and add it to my profile there at the church. So what I'm doing right now is essentially I am one trying to raise up people. to take my place, because the quicker that I raise somebody up, the quicker that I can get out of that position. Not that I'm looking for a way out, but I got too much going on to just constantly be um, doing what a youth ministry or another sub ministry would require, right? And so, or I'm looking externally, but the heart is always to raise somebody up. So the first thing that I would do, case in point, would be I set the tone, I do it, and then the person watches. Okay. Number two, I do and you help. So I give the person just a little bit more responsibility. I'm still holding their hands. I'm doing small adjustments here and there. They're helping me, but I'm still carrying the weight. They might have some responsibility, but I'm still carrying weight, because there is a difference between responsibility and weight. Typically with weights, you have responsibility, but when you have responsibility, you don't always have weight, a weighty matter, right? The ability to make decisions. Okay. So number two, I do, that person helps. Now we've flipped the script. Now that person does, and I help. So now they're carrying a little more weight, and I'm helping them along the way. I'm in their corner. I'm having meetings with them. We are having debriefs together. One of the guys um, that works on our youth team, he's full time at the church, and we're having a lot of meetings right now. I'm doing a lot of small adjustments with him. Not that he's necessarily trying to be the next youth pastor, but he is a young leader that is called to be a pastor, and he's on staff and he's easily accessible, right? And I'm his oversight. So that's my role, to allow him to do certain things, and I continue to mentor, coach, train, pastor him through that. So we're having consistent meetings, hallway conversations, corner of the room conversations, right? I'm saying things like, okay, you're doing great, but let me just help you a little bit. Let's adjust this. Let's correct this. This is why I see certain things certain ways. I'm trying to train his eye to see certain things in certain ways. Have him handle a little bit more of responsibility, and I come in and do the weighty side. For example, we had to make we made the announcement to the youth. I'm using this as a case in point because I feel like it'll really paint a picture, especially some of you on this call, you are in ministry. So I had to call a meeting with the youth leadership team last week, because I had to make the announcement to them that their youth pastor was no longer with us. And so this other guy whom I oversee on the church staff, his name is Aaron. I had him come in, and he was going to, it didn't work out this way. A couple things happened, but he was going to make the initial announcement and try to handle what he needed to handle. And I was in the corner handling the weightier stuff. I was going to come in with that pastoral support, come in with just that stamp of endorsement on what he's saying. So he was doing, but I was there to help, if that makes sense. So that's one case in point. You can translate it all the way to something like social media. Right now, I have passed off our young adults ministry, social media, to a couple of guys, and Michael, you're one of them. And you and Levi, you are running with it and doing an excellent job. And I'm there to help. I'm there to make small adjustments. Hey guys, let's maybe throw this in there, or not put this in there, or let's change our verbiage here, or this let's do this here. But they're doing right. I've gotten now to pull away because I have delegated, right? I've passed that off, and I don't have to be the one to do it any longer. So I love this one right here, number 4. You do, but I watch. Now I'm pretty hands off at this point. I tune in every now and then. I kind of just check it out. That's kind of where I am specifically with social media. I'm getting ready to start passing off the church's social media. I oversee that at the church. And so I really look forward to when I get to, let's be frank here. I get to have some time and energy back. Once I pass number 3 right here, I get to have some time back, right? Time that we never really had in the first place to give. But I get to have it back now because I have went through step 1 through 3 so diligently, and I've gotten to pass off some responsibility and even some weight, right? Giving somebody the ability to have authority and make decisions, that now I'm just kind of watching, and I tune in when I feel like it, or I tune in when my schedule says to tune in, right? Every few weeks, I go back, I inspect what I expect, right? So that's number 4, that the other person does. And now I'm just a bystander, I'm watching. Number 5 is when you've really taken it completely and doing an excellent job because you do and they watch. In other words, the world now gets to benefit off of your labor, that person's labor. Now, if you pass off something too soon, I understand how tough this might be because it's so much harder to sit somebody down than to stand somebody up, right? It's easy to say, okay, you got to go. And then it's much tougher to say, oh, hang on, let me take that back from you. You know what I'm saying? If I hand you this pen, it's pretty simple for you to receive and accept. But if I try to pull the pen out of your hand, there's some friction there. It's tougher, right? I should do a whole teaching on how to sit somebody down properly because this is a very fragile game. Okay, so you want to make sure that you just really go step by step and you don't pass off, you don't move to number 3 too soon. Okay, to where you're really allowing somebody else to do it and you're there to help. You just want to be very discerning and use a lot of wisdom to not give something to somebody too soon. A lot of people get really frustrated because I don't pass off stuff to them. But the truth of the matter is, which happened to me many times in my young zeal, or even in this season, there are certain things that I'm like, you know, you can just give it to me, just pass it off to me. Truth of the matter is, I might not be ready, right? Or the person you're developing, they might not be ready. And there's nothing wrong with telling somebody that they're not ready. I had a conversation with an incredible young leader not too long ago, and he was wanting a certain task, desiring a certain task, feeling like he was being developed for it. And his oversight told him, you're not ready. And I had a conversation with him, and this young man, he, like I said, he's an incredible leader. But I asked him the question, because of course he was a little upset, but he understood. But I said, "Are you okay with not being ready? What if that's the truth? What if that is the truth? The cold, it's not even the cold-hearted truth, it's the honest truth. That sometimes in life, in certain tasks that we might desire, we're just not ready, right? Because if we got it too soon, we would crush it or it would crush us. And oftentimes it's the protection of God to say, hey, just wait, continue to be developed, continue to be rounded, continue to work on your character, lean into coaching, lean into mentorship, lean into someone in their life who has gone before you in this realm. And so I asked him, I said, are you just okay? What if that's the fact? What if that's the truth? That you're just not ready. And it's not something that we want to hear, right? But there's nothing wrong with that. So I told him, and this guy could take it. Like I say, he's a great leader. But I told him, go ask your oversight, ask him, what are 2 things in this season that I could work on? Because that would free up the room all within itself. That's an easy question. And it's open-ended. That person, the oversight could answer however they want to answer because I guarantee you they are basically dying to say something to you. But sometimes it's inconvenient that it's not the right setting. They don't want to ruffle the feathers. They're like, and then they say, there's a side of it too. A leader that oversees another leader, part of them says, well, would my time, effort, energy, and wisdom even be worth it? And that's just the truth. Would it even be worth it to go there with a person? Can they take it? That goes through the head, of a leader. It's like it's unfortunate that has to kind of filter through our souls. Can can this leader, can they really take this honest feedback, the feedback that I know that helped me go to the next level in life? But anyways, that is a powerful question for us on two sides here. One, if you are the person needing the advice, ask the question, what are two things I can work on? And then don't be afraid of what you're going to hear. Consider the correction love, right? Because typically a leader, they wouldn't go through the inconvenience of being honest if they didn't actually love and believe in you. So maybe ask them, what are two things in this season that I could aggressively work on? And can you help me in this journey? On the other side, if you are the leader being asked this, okay, make sure maybe don't just spout off two things. If you don't already know it, which I encourage you to already know these two things, have it in your back pocket. If you don't already know it, say, hey, give me a couple days. I'll get back with you. Okay. Don't just say, oh, don't say some generic, crap. Right. Um, so we want to be sure that we give them something to work on. Don't just tell them tell them how you have done it. And also at the same time, as someone else's leader, um, I would encourage you to not be maybe not be maybe intimidated might be the right word. Anyways, don't be afraid. Afraid's not the right word for sure, but I'll say it this way for time's sake. Don't be afraid to just sit somebody down and then especially if you have that relationship and you know they want to grow, you can sit them down and say, okay, here are two things, uh, that you need to work on. You don't have to wait for them to approach you, but oftentimes it's just easiest that way, especially if you are the person approaching a leader. Okay. All right. There is no success without succession. You might have heard this before. A lot of people they hoard their wisdom. They hoard their role. It's like they have to have the secrets, of the trade, and they can't share them with anybody else. I want to give as much stuff away as I can. I I'm having to monetize this to respect my time a little bit more in the season, and I'm building a company. But as much as I can, realistically, I want to give away all that I have because I don't want to die with it all in me. You have so much in you that the world is waiting to see, that people in your life they need to know. So pour out everything that you have, whether it's in writing, in video, right? In face to face, get it somewhere. We live in a podcast. We live in an incredible age where we can, in a click of a button, empty out all of our wisdom, and it's probably not going to go anywhere. How cool is that? That my great grandkids someday can type in Tyler Wooten and they get to watch this session right here. If I decide to post this later on and make it public, etc. But how cool is that? What a neat age we live in. And so I want to encourage you to empty it out somewhere, wherever it might be. There is no success without succession. Okay, so the point here in this context is, um, it's essentially what it's saying. You might have heard this before. I believe it might be Maxwell again. I believe when you if you were to resign or transition from a role, whether it's because of age or because of transition of season to another place, I don't believe we were truly successful if we have not passed that thing off to somebody else well. If you have not trained somebody up well. Now, I understand there are some scenarios that I've been in, some transitions that have happened maybe a little more abruptly to where it was premature and it was out of your hands. That's one thing. But in most situations, especially if you are under good leadership, you have a season approaching your transition from that role. And maybe it's a transition to just another seat on the staff. Maybe it's not a transition um, off that role. But the point here is there is no success without succession. And that's what we need to lodge deep down in our minds, in our hearts, that we are constantly to be raising up the next. Okay, leaders leave it better than they found it. Leaders leave it better than they found it. Again, I oversee some things here at Word of God Ministries, and I'm constantly looking. I want you to hear me right when I say this. I'm looking for a way out of all these roles. Now, I'm not looking for a way out with frustration, with discontentment. I'm looking for a way out as far as I want, when I transition from that role, from that seat specifically, I want the next person. Matter of fact, I even told my pastor, my leader, I said, I refuse to transition from any seat without that position, that department on the come up, right? Because I want to leave it better than I found it. I don't want to go through hardship in a department and just say, okay, well, deuces, have fun cleaning that up. No, that's your role. So you always want to leave it better than you found it. You know, for example, I was using youth ministry earlier as a case in point, and right now it's just not necessarily not that it's gone down the drain whatsoever, but because of a recent transition, um, in our former YP, he did an excellent job. I love him, so don't hear me say anything other than that. But I want to make sure that I catch it where it's at and take it to the next level before I hire anybody else to come in and be the YP, if that makes sense. So leaders leave it better than they found it. Okay, this is the big one right here. Many think training others up will threaten their job. Rather, this is backwards, I know. Rather, it will provide job security. Work yourself out of a position. I want you to think on that for a minute. Because leaders, the number one thing we face is more than likely insecurity, right? We struggle with it constantly. It's one of those things that we just have to make sure that we stay on top of it and that we deal with it and we get down to the source of it all. And sometimes because of insecurity, we see developing others through the lens of, I might lose my job because they're better than me. You know, you're real secure and mature in your leadership when you don't mind leading people that are better than you at what you do. I pray that when I'm in that position to where my entire team, my staff, or I have some young guns under me that are better than me, that I'm okay with that, that I maximize that. How cool is that? That you have developed other people, and because of your investment and their God-given skill sets, they are more gifted than you at what you do. How cool is that? So a lot of insecure leaders, they they say, "Oh, nobody can be better than me. I am the lid," because you think that your job is threatened. But let me say this: if I see you on our staff developing somebody else and they ended up being more gifted and fruitful than you, I'm not saying, I'm not going to come in and say, "Well, Michael, we got to replace you now. You're out, buddy. Sorry." I say, how valuable is Michael that he can raise somebody up to be better than him? That is job security, my friend. A leader developer like that, that is one of the most attractive things to a high tiered leader, is when they can look back on their team and see people on their team raising up with security other people and leading people more gifted than them. I have no problem at all if certain people can outpreach me, outwork me, out strategize me, outthink me, out execute me. I have no problem with that. I know that I'm not going anywhere as long as I can continue to raise up people like that, right? So how cool is it that you are such a good leader developer that you can work yourself out of a position? Quite frankly, if I right now, every position that I have at the church, if I can outwork myself or work myself out of that position, my leader in my life, case in point, or speaking to this context, my pastor, He'll create another position for me. We'll get creative. We'll come up with something, right? And I know I'm going to be around for a long time if I can continue to raise up people that know how to do my job specifically better than me. So work yourself. That should be your heart right there, because that's reproduction, right? Working yourself out of a position. You should always at least be seeing it through that lens that I'm probably not going to be in this seat forever. I need to train somebody up to do it better than me. And it's not going to jeopardize whether or not you're on the staff. If anything, it validates your leadership and your skill set to develop other leaders, and especially when they can do it, come on, better than you. How cool is that? There are a lot of guys that I pastored and led over the years that are way more gifted than me, making way more money than me. Matter of fact, a guy that I pastored even from his youth right now, he is one of my business partners now in a business that I have a share in. Okay. He makes more money than me. Quite frankly, he probably does less work than me. As far as the specific thing that he makes more money than me in. And he would agree with that. But I have no problem because he is so gifted, so stinking gifted at what he does. And I know that, quite frankly, not that I need the credit, but a little part of him is part of my legacy. And I'm so proud of him. And it brings tears to my eyes when I think of him because he has excelled like crazy in life. I have no problem with that. With my shoulders, my ceiling being their floor. And that's the heart of succession right there. That my ceiling, my cap is your floor. And I want you to go further than me, faster than me, right? That should be the heart of a true leader, okay? That where I stop, you begin. I went through all these years of hardship and pain and trials. I went through all this just to package it up for you, all this wisdom, and give it to you freely. They don't have to go through what you went through if they can truly just glean from the wisdom that you learned with what you went through. Okay? So my ceiling is your floor. That is the heart of succession. Go further. I want, for example, Michael right now on this call. He's under my leadership in this season. I want him to go further than me. He's called to be probably a YP in this next season of his life. And I can't wait to just be a small part in connecting the dots for him on his next season, whether it's sending him out somewhere else because of a relationship that I have or whatever God might have. I don't know. But I do know that I want his ministry to be larger. I want his voice to be louder. I want his influence to be, to expand further than mine could ever. Okay. So that's the heart of a leader. That should be the heart of succession.